In an empire where marble gleamed brighter than compassion and blood flowed more freely than water, Rome stood as the heart of both civilization and cruelty. Among its millions lived a man named Tiberius, who never imagined his life would echo through the centuries. He was once a farmer. His days were filled with the warmth of the dawn, the gentle laughter of his wife Livia, and the simple, satisfying rhythm of a sickle slicing through wheat under the golden Italian sun. But one night, that world burned. Flames swallowed his home as Roman legions stormed his village, dragging men into slavery and women into servitude. Bound in iron and marched for days without food, Tiberius watched his old life fade behind him like smoke on the wind. In the chaotic slave market of Rome, his name was stripped away, replaced by a number, his worth reduced to a handful of coins. He was sold to the infamous Ludus Magnus, the grand gladiator school right beside the Colosseum. He had entered a world where mercy was weakness, and blind obedience was the only path to survival. The trainer, a scarred veteran named Verus, greeted the new slaves not with words, but with the sharp crack of a whip. "You are not men," he told them, his voice as cold as steel. "You are Rome's entertainment." The days bled into one another, each a brutal copy of the last, training until their bones screamed, eating the scraps left by the rich, and sleeping beside men who might be dead by sunrise. Every week someone would vanish, dragged to the arena to entertain citizens drunk on bloodlust. Tiberius learned quickly. He learned how to block, how to strike, how to kill without a second thought. But no lesson could teach him how to live with the suffocating guilt that followed. His only friend, Crixus, an older gladiator who had somehow survived 100 fights, once told him, "The moment you stop feeling pain, my boy, you stop being human." Yet the arena demanded exactly that, the death of his humanity. When his first fight finally came, Tiberius walked through the gates as thunderous drums echoed in his chest, and 50,000 pairs of eyes burned into him. The sun glared down on his bare chest, the sand was hot beneath his feet. His opponent, another slave just like him, was weeping quietly, whispering prayers to gods that had long forgotten him. The horn blew. Tiberius hesitated. A whip tore across his back. The searing pain became pure instinct. Steel met flesh. The world slowed to a deafening silence as his sword cut through life itself. The crowd erupted in a deafening roar. For them, it was a spectacular victory. For Tiberius, it was the end of his innocence. Days turned into months, months into years. His name grew famous across Rome. Tiberius the Unyielding, the Merciless of Capua. Gold coins showered from the stands, women threw garlands at his feet, and powerful senators cheered his name. Yet none of that gold was his, and none of that glory felt real. Behind the cold iron bars of his cell, he would stare at the moon and whisper Livia's name, desperately trying to remember her hands, her laughter, her voice calling him home. Then came the rumor, a whisper in the dark. Livia had been taken by a high-ranking Roman officer, forced to serve the very empire that had shattered their lives. That night, Tiberius finally broke, his tears mixed with the dried blood on the cold stone floor. He fought harder after that. Not for freedom, not for survival, but to drown out the deafening noise inside his own soul. Every opponent became a reflection of his own pain, each death a desperate cry for release. But Rome does not let its favorite toys break so easily. The more he bled, the more the people loved him. The emperor himself once attended his fight, nodding in solemn approval as Tiberius dispatched 3 men in a single brutal ballet of violence. That night, he was given extra bread and a new chain, heavier, but gilded. It shined like freedom, but it was still a chain. Crixus, now old and frail, approached him. "Rome fears only one thing," he said, his voice a low growl. "The man who stops fearing death." From that moment, rebellion was no longer a whispered dream. In the secret corners of the Ludus, men swore oaths over stolen blades. On the eve of the festival of Mars, as the entire city drowned itself in wine and celebration, they struck. Chains shattered, torches blazed, and the night roared with the sound of vengeance. Tiberius led the charge through the corridors, his sword carving a path toward the main gates. Flames rose high into the sky, guards fell, and for one brief, beautiful moment, freedom was real. The gladiators fled into the countryside, but they were hunted by legions, branded as traitors. They hid in caves, lived on stolen bread, and shared stories of the families they'd never see again. For the first time in years, Tiberius saw the stars without iron bars between them, but peace was a fleeting luxury. Rome's vengeance was as swift as it was brutal. Thousands of soldiers surrounded them in the hills. Crixus stood beside him, smiling through the pain. "At least," he said, "today we fight for ourselves." The battle was chaos, the clash of metal, the screams of dying men, the choking smell of smoke and blood. Tiberius fought like a man who had already died once. He watched his brothers fall one by one until only he stood, wounded and surrounded. He was captured and dragged back to Rome, bound in chains thicker than ever before, and paraded through the streets as a living lesson. The same crowd that had once cheered his name now threw stones and insults. At the emperor's command, he was taken to the arena one last time. The announcer roared his name, the very name they once praised, and the crowd laughed, calling him a traitor. As he stood in the center of the sand, under the same blazing sun where it had all begun, Tiberius lifted his eyes to the heavens. He felt no fear, no hate, only a profound stillness. When the executioner's blade flashed, time seemed to slow. He thought of wheat fields, of Livia's smile, of a world before chains. As the steel cut through his flesh, he whispered, "Now, I am free." The crowd cheered, the emperor smiled, and Rome continued its endless feast, unaware that something eternal had just slipped through its fingers. For centuries, his name was forgotten, his bones turned to dust beneath the Colosseum. But the echo of his defiance never truly died. It lingers in the stones, in the silence after the applause, in every soul that has ever wondered what freedom truly means. This is the story of Tiberius, a story not of victory, but of the unyielding human spirit. Told at last, by legacy heard. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing for more tales from history that deserve to be remembered.